Petroglyph Podcast.
Welcome everybody to our Petroglyph video podcast. Today we'll be talking about the Universe at War music. I'm Kevin Yu, your community manager, also known as Sage King. Today we have Frank Klepacki, our audio director here at Petroglyph.
What's happening?
Pretty much responsible for all the music for Universe at War, bringing back the CNC flavor that he had such a huge hand in for the Command & Conquer franchise.
Absolutely.
So Frank, could you tell us a little bit about your studio and the equipment that you're using to make music for Universe at War?
Sure. Well, most things are virtually done these days. Back in the old Westwood days, for example, I used to have racks of gear all the way up to the wall and, huge mixing board. And nowadays, computers pretty much can do everything. So I just have a lot of my instrumentation, sequencer all into the computer. Just make sure that I had a really hefty system. Probably have one of the fastest systems in the company, actually. 4 gigs of RAM, dual hard drives, 3 gigahertz CPU. Actually, I think it's a 3.3.
It's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, so it's pretty smoking. And it's necessary, especially if you're going to do it that way. But it does save space, so it looks like I have a more modest setup, but in all reality, it's all on the computer, so.
Good stuff. And you also have a sound studio here for...
Yeah, I have a vocal voice booth over here with a microphone and soundproofing behind it. Basically, it's for, doing scratch vocals over the course of the development to make sure that everything that we're putting in for unit responses and, different vocalizations and death screams and coughing and etc., we do all that here initially, and then we hire the final actors later after we get towards the later part of development.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and jump to the questions then.
All right.
So Frank, tell us a little bit about how the music for Universe at War differs from the music that's in Empire War.
Well, in Universe at War, it's an all-original creation, the whole game, so that allows me to basically do whatever I feel like with the score, which is awesome because, it's finally an opportunity to get back into having some creative freedom once again and doing multiple variety of different types of scores and, different styles of music once again and be able to kind of add more of my flavor into things once again, as you said before. Whereas, with Empire War, for example, it was strictly, John Williams is the default for that, and so I was adhering stylistically to that.
So how will the music in Command & Conquer have influence on those in Universe at War?
Well, you will just have to find out. No, seriously, though, I have a lot of surprises in store. I think a lot of the fans are really going to be pleased with some of the things that I've come up with for this particular game. Granted, Command & Conquer is very much a part of, what my style of that type of music was founded on, combining, the various elements of rock and electronic and hip-hop and, contemporary edge with, some orchestral elements and whatnot. It's just, it comes down to not having limitations on what it is that you can do. And when you have a project like this that allows you that freedom and that creativity to thrive, then you can really take advantage. And I think the biggest difference now is that imagine my mindset and the way that I was thinking and writing when CNC first came out, and add about 15 years experience to that. I think that's what you can expect from Universe at War.
Awesome. Sounds very exciting. Tell us a little bit about what inspired the creation of the Hierarchy music. We've already talked a little bit in the press about the Hierarchy faction, which is the alien walkers invading Earth. And so how is the music going to represent that faction?
Well, I'm happy to say that metal is back. The Hierarchy definitely is going to rely heavily on, extreme rock, heavy metal. And it's still going to have some really good ambient selections as well that are going to be really eerie and creepy and spooky and really play upon the fact that they're menacing, they're evil, they're here to wipe out human race, and that's really where I'm going with the music for that. But a lot of it is definitely going to be, really energized rock.
So how will the Hierarchy music differ from the other faction, if it will differ?
Well, absolutely. That type of music is going to be strictly for that faction versus the other ones, which will have, very different styles unto themselves. So each faction that you play will definitely give you a different music score, a different experience. But for the time being, The only hint I'm giving is that the hierarchy is going to rock out.
Sweet. So is there anything that you could show us that you're working on right now for the hierarchy?
Absolutely. I've got a work in progress if you actually want to see me in the middle of writing it. So I'll be happy to give you a demonstration.
Sounds good. So what about the voiceovers and the unit sounds? Could you elaborate a little more on that for the game? How is that going to differ from the previous games you've worked on before?
Well, we're definitely going to try to give different personalities to the various units, mainly in the faction aspect of it. Again, trying to get into the whole feel of each faction, giving them their own unique vibe and feel. And the coolest thing about having the hierarchy in this game is that they can be really strange and kind of really over the top. So I'm going to have a lot of fun working with those guys. It's definitely going to have its own style to it and be a little different than of course what we did before. We worked on with the Star Wars universe, which already has its own set ways in characterization and the different archetypes that are involved there. So it's going to be a lot of fun coming up with new stuff.
Okay, also with this video podcast that we're releasing, we're also releasing a small clip of Frank's music for Universe at War, and the song is called Damage King. Could you tell us a little bit more about that song?
Absolutely. Well, see, when I was playing online against Sage King one time, I really got mad because he was whipping my butt, so then I nicknamed him Damage King. And then I wrote a song that, echoed how angry I was. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously, though, it's definitely one of the heavier songs out of the lot of the hierarchy faction, and it's one of the ones that I'm pretty proud of. I think it represents really well. It really gives you that adrenaline rush, which is something that I love to get when I'm playing an RTS. Reminds me of the older days when I was really into the fast pace, shoot 'em up, get in there and take out the enemy's base kind of vibe. So, and it also has an ambient flavor to it as well to kind of lead you into it. So it's like you get an idea of how sinister the hierarchy is up until the point where they just start pummeling you to death. The song actually starts off with an ambient section, which sounds like this. And you'll hear this for the beginning part of a mission when you're, fighting against the hierarchy. And eventually when they discover your base and start pummeling on you, then you'll hear this. And mayhem has begun.
Well, that pretty much concludes all of the questions that we have today for our video podcast. Thanks a lot, Frank, for spending the time with the community.
You're welcome, dude.
Answer all of our questions, getting us very excited for Universe at War. Everybody's anticipating your music like crazy if you look on the boards.
Well, I'm happy that anticipation's there, and I always love the fans, and I think you guys will not be disappointed.
Take it easy.
End of transmission.